If you are a fan of the Dive Bar Rockstar podcast and would like to help support the show, there's a great way that you can do that and start a new fashion trend. We have a new merchandise page on the website which features t-shirts and hoodies that are available for sale on Amazon. Just click on merchandise in the top menu and all of the links will be there, or go directly to divebarrockstar.com/merchandise. Get started early on your Christmas shopping at divebarrockstar.com. Welcome to the Dive Bar Rockstar podcast, a show exploring the lives of music professionals of all types. Touring musicians, recording artists, songwriters, engineers, bar bands, wedding bands, and anyone making their living in the music industry. Whether you've dreamed of being a music professional or you already are one, this is the podcast for you. I'm your host, Eric Baines, and I hope that you not only find some entertainment here, but also some helpful tips, trade secrets, and ideas that will help you achieve your dreams. Well, it rained here in Los Angeles today, and that rarely happens anymore here. So I think it's a pretty special day, and what a great day to make a podcast. So let's do it. And I'd like to start by giving a shout out to all of the fans on Facebook and everywhere, of course, but especially Facebook, because a few very motivated and cool fans have created a couple of fan pages. There's the Eric Baines fan page and the official fan club of Eric Baines page. They're both really cool and they're run by some great people. Specific shout out to Marianne, Melinda, Deborah, and Paula. And it's something that I never thought was going to happen to me. So it's super humbling. They post a lot of live photos and videos, but they also do giveaways of Eric Baines paraphernalia. So, I don't even know where it comes from half the time. Some of it they make themselves, some stuff they have made up, and then I provide them with a few things here and there, like some pictures or whatever. So you can win cool stuff. So if you're interested, check them out on Facebook and join the groups because it's great fun and they're great folks. So thank you guys for all of your hard work. It's greatly appreciated. And also thanks to each and every member of the groups. I really appreciate it. Thanks for being a part of it. My guest today is an amazing guitarist, composer, producer who has toured and was the MD for one of my super big heroes, Babyface, for many years. He's also performed with David Foster, Stevie Wonder, Natalie Cole, Kirk Whalum, Dave Koz, Kat Graham, Jewel, India RE, Carrie Underwood, so many more, Donny Osmond. He has recorded with Justin Bieber, Barbra Streisand, Celine Dion, Aretha Franklin, Sting, Layla Hathaway, Josh Groban, Colby Calais, and Leslie Odom Jr., just to name a few. And he's also been on many movie soundtracks, like Ferdinand, Men in Black 3, The Lorax, Happy Feet 2, Night and Day, MacGruber, one of my favorites, Pineapple Express, Kung Fu Panda, Stop Loss, P.S. I Love You. It just goes on and on and on and on and on. The guy has done amazing stuff. And besides having a podcast, which is not unlike this one, it's called The Career Musician, and I highly recommend it. He has a lot of different guests. It's amazing how much we don't overlap being in the same town. But his latest venture is this amazing course that he's put together with his team of folks, and it's called Pro Level Sessions from Home, and it launches on October 17th. And it's just full of information on how to get pro-level sound out of your home recording studio. It really looks amazing. I've watched a bunch of the promo videos, and I'm really excited about it. There'll be a link in the show notes about how to get it, and we're going to talk all about it. So let's get to it. So please enjoy my conversation with Michael Ripoll, a.k.a. Nomad. So we just met recently, but right. Judging by your resume and your podcast and everything that you're doing, I'm guessing that you're a pretty hard worker.
Yeah. I never stop. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you think that it kind of makes me think, because, a lot of people think it's about talent. And so ratio, like talent to hard work, what do you think? Do you think it's the hard work is more important than talent, or it's just about both?
No, man, that's such a great question. I'm of the ilk that talent is a resource that everybody has within. And some people might take the time to unearth it quicker. Some people it takes longer to discover, and some people never discover it, right? So I truly believe that everybody has a talent for something. Now, sometimes when you deal with intangibles like music and art, it's difficult to quantify versus your accountant. Like Scott, my accountant, Scott Brown, if anybody needs an accountant who does musicians, he's amazing. He's out here in Calabasas. He has such what I call a talent for numbers, for doing accounting. I'm like, bro, I could, even if I went to school for it, I would despise it, and I wouldn't internalize it. Therefore, I wouldn't be good at it.
Right.
So in my opinion, that's a talent. Right?
For sure.
Okay.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
So I think everybody has a talent. Now, the hard work, I think also a lot of people have talent and then don't cultivate it. And that, I mean, we could look at the entertainment media news and see a lot of, actors, singers, artists of all different types who, man, they're talented, but they just didn't do the right things. They didn't work hard enough, or whatever it was. I don't know. Or they screwed up, whatever it is. So I do think that they go hand in hand, hard work. But I also think that hard work needs to be balanced with family.
Yeah.
And I'm guilty of that. So I try to be more cognizant of it.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. And that's hard. It's hard for this business. It's probably the hardest thing really, is to figure out how to do all this and have people in your life that you love.
Right. Because we're on call 24/7. You think about it, right? So whether it's a gig or a session, that's great. And we want people to call us for that. But then we also have to do our own work. Like here we're doing a podcast, or we have to build our own products and songs and things like that. So
yeah, for sure.
It's nonstop.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, but I think that's been like surprising for me. I guess I shouldn't say surprising, but as I meet more artists, the hard work element is always surprising when you get these really successful people. It's like, that took way more work than I thought it would. You think that I don't know, I make a demo and then someone hears it and it goes crazy and then, oh my gosh, I'm a rock star. And that's generally never what happens.
Not the case.
Like I worked for Dwight Yoakam. The guy doesn't sleep, like even to this day. He just is a working guy. He's got multiple businesses.
There you go.
He's just a working guy. And it's really interesting. Like I think for me, like advice for younger people is always like, it's going to take way more work than you think, especially now, because you're not going to have a record label that's going to be like holding your hand. Now you got to get on YouTube and figure it out, or whatever, there's so many jobs now that are on the shoulders of the players and the musicians and songwriters and people who want to make it,
Yeah. Well, I couldn't agree more. And it's so funny you say that, because my partner and I, Eric G, he's the operations manager for the Career Musician. And he's literally my right-hand man. He and I talk about it all the time. We'll allocate a certain amount of time to get tasks done. And we always look at each other in the middle of the task, whether we're doing it together or, separately, like, damn, this is going to take longer. And then when we get done with it, we're like, shit, that took 3 effing hours. We wanted it to take 15 minutes.
Right.
Holy crap. How did it take that long just to make this little graphic go there and then do this and then link this? And you're like, jeez, man.
Yeah. I think I learned that early on about the studio too. It's like, can't you just do a quick mix? Well, that's about 10 hours.
That's cute.
You know what I mean?
Mix, right? It's 10 hours.
Yeah. Well, we'll just mix it. That's a long time.
It's 2 days worth of work, son.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
no
that's
doubt.
funny.
No doubt.
Wow.
Man, I love this setup. This is killing.
Well, thank you. Yeah,
beautiful.
We're in my garage. I call it the Little Green Alien Studios.
It looks dope. And he's got a little green alien hanging down from the roof.
Yeah,
I like it.
He's always watching over us for no apparent reason.
As long as he keeps his clothes on.
Well, it can get crazy in this room. I'm not gonna lie.
I'd imagine.
Yeah, luckily it's detached from the house, so we can make as much noise as we want. And it's basically soundproof.
That's right.
It could be dangerous in here.
Does your wife know about the casting couch over here?
She helped me pick it out.
Okay, good. See, that's how my wife is. You need a supportive person in your corner. There you go.
Right. Well, speaking of that, I was checking out your music on Spotify, the Nomad and Lola.
Yes.
And that was going to be later, but why don't we just get to it since you brought up your wife? Because you do have like a duo, and that's awesome, right? I mean, the music is amazing.
Thank you.
And eclectic and surprising, and it's really cool.
Oh, wow.
I dug it a lot.
Man, thank you so much, bro. I appreciate that. It's funny because, okay, how do I put this quickly? All right. So you start off as a musician. Yeah, I want to play guitar. I want to do this, whatever. And then you realize, oh man, I'm an artist too. I can write, and I love to sing, and I write lyrics, and I like to produce songs, and I have a vision for how. And it's like, how do you do all that and pursue a job, a career, quote unquote, as a backing musician for other bands, for other artists? It's really hard. Because when you say it like that, you're like, oh no, it's easy. In your spare time, you just do your thing. Yeah, right.
Right.
So on paper, it's a lot harder in reality. So, but when we got together, I told her, listen, and we've been together for a long time, over 13, 14 years. We're never going to work together. I told her, don't ask. It's not going to happen. 6 months later, we're writing songs together. It was inevitable because she's so damn talented. Yeah, you know, and I'm so grateful to have such a wonderful person, like I said, on my team. But to be married to this person is awesome. And then when we create, it's beautiful. Now, when we record, it's something different because then I turn into producer mode and I turn into an asshole. I'm like, no, you got to do that again. No, you didn't double that perfectly. No. You were pitchy on that. And then she'll be like, I was pitchy on what? You know, so and because you're together all the time.
Then the relationship stuff comes out.
Yeah, you get on each other's nerves. So I've gotten better at that. I've gotten a lot better because I had to be cognizant about that too and really tone that down. So, but my point is the end result is amazing. However, the biggest piece of the puzzle is marketing. So because we don't have enough time and resources and money to dedicate to the marketing, the music doesn't get noticed by as large of an audience as we'd like. But at some point, you have to say, I have 24 hours. If I sleep 6 to 8 of those hours, then I'm left with this amount. I have this family, and then I have this, and then I have obligations, and I have bills, and so forth. There's only so much time in a day.
Yeah.
You know, so we're doing our best to try to juggle it and really push it out there. But nomadandlola.com, and we're on all the streaming services and YouTube. And then we've done gigs. We love doing country club gigs. Golf courses.
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes we go as a duo. Sometimes we hire a couple other musicians. And it's great. Like we have one coming up on October 14th. So those are fun because eclectic, I really like that word. That is a word that we use to describe our music.
Yeah.
Everything from old Spanish boleros and, you know, some flamenco Spanish guitar infusion with old spaghetti Western type guitars.
Yeah.
And then some R&B elements, Latin elements, rock elements. We did some covers like The Wall.
Yeah, I was going to say like Poets Repose into a cover of Another Brick in the Wall. That's super cool and different.
Yes.
And like, I think that record alone, Chronicles of Lola,
yes,
is like a concept, right? It's what we used to call a concept record.
That's what it is. Dude, you get it.
Yeah.
Oh my
so
gosh.
Cool.
Okay, so before Nomad and Lola were a duo, we had Lola as a separate artist and Nomad as a separate artist. So we wrote and recorded her whole album, The Chronicles of Lola, and then we recorded my whole album, Nomad.
Got you.
And so we have these two separate albums, but then we were like, wait a minute, we're even better together. So we got, you know, so, and she always says, she's like, yeah, we're like a modern day Sonny and Cher. I'm like, yeah, okay. Modern day Sonny and Cher mixed with a whole bunch of other stuff.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah, for sure.
We don't need no education. We don't need no false control. No dark sarcasm in the classroom. Teacher, leave those kids alone. We don't need no education. We don't need no false.
And you produced all of that stuff?
Yeah. Me and my team, which are my dear friends, Richie Pena, who's a drummer and a drum programmer, but also an amazing producer and just the nicest guy in the world. Ziggy Diaz. These are my boys from New York, my Latino crew. Ziggy cool. Diaz, great keyboard player and DJ and producer. And then now we've roped in Eric G from The Career Musician, and now he collaborates with us. So we have a collab on there, actually streaming, called Oak Street 6.
Oh yeah, I listened to that too.
It's like a modern,
cool.
Thank you, a modern R&B joint. Yeah, kind of like in the way of Childish Gambino, because we love him so much. So we did that with Eric, and he and I are singing leads, and Lola's singing background on that. So we flipped it around. Yeah,
there you go.
So cool. So it's a team effort. You know, I love collaborating. Yeah, you know, and as a composer, like you said, how you're a composer. That's why I did the interludes on the Chronicles of Lola. Yeah. For that concept.
It's so cool.
Thank you.
Yeah. Because it's kind of unexpected when you start it. Well, it's crazy anyway. It starts with Jailbait, right?
Yeah.
And like
man, you really
country sort of Western thing. And that already is like, oh, it's funny. It's cool. Right. It's quick. And then it's into like a pop tune, you know, quality pop tune, you know, and really cool. And anyways, so as you go, it just gets crazier and crazier. I dug it.
Oh man, thank you so much for making me blush. I'm so excited. You're like one of the first people to actually acknowledge it. Thank you, bro.
Well, no, it sounds great, and it's also a great showcase of your production and your production style, and you know, that's a pretty cool. It's cool. I don't know. I dug it.
I agree.
I'm a fan, man.
Thank you so much. I agree. And that's the calling card. And by the way, if I could turn that into advice, sorry to sound like Mr. Career Musician guy, but that's what I am. What I learned through this whole process of being a producer, composer, writer myself, and even singer, is that just accept who you are. Don't try to be somebody else. Right. I freaking love the way, you know, David Foster produces, but that's not what I do. I love the way Glenn Ballard produces, but Rick Rubin, I love the way all these different producers produce, but that's not me.
Right.
You listen to all those people, you take influences, and then over time, your voice comes out. Yeah. Just like as an instrumentalist, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's exactly what I would say about it, is that I can hear you in the production. You know, it's not like it's crazy weird and out, you know what I'm saying? Like I get that this is a pop song, you know, pop production, but it's got a stamp on it. You know what I mean? It's something I haven't heard exactly before. And that's, I think that's the, you know, if you're going to be a successful producer, I think that's the key, is like staying ahead of the curve and trying things that haven't been done and figuring it. And the best way to maybe to do that is to figure out who you are, because no one else can be that.
That's right.
You know?
Well said. I call it your USN, unique sonic niche. Really lean into that. Find it and lean into it.
Look out, boys, she's on the run. We all know she's lots of fun. Before you start, you will be done. That's Jailbait. She just might take you for a spin with her soft and supple skin. In the end, you'll never win. That's Jailbait. Don't you chase that jail. apart. Every man's favorite large. She is one that can be bought. Oh boy, now don't you get caught. Don't you chase that jailbait, jailbait. Jailbait.
Yeah.
And I always say, lean into your strengths.
Yeah.
Fuck
absolutely.
your weaknesses, man.
Yeah.
I suck at sight reading. Like, I can't sight read bebop charts.
Right.
Or, a
Well,
bebop head,
Right. Yeah.
Like, if you put Donna Lee in front of me, I could play it because I know it from when I was a kid, but I couldn't sight read the new version of Donna Lee.
Right.
So I had to wrestle with that.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm not going to be that guy. I did a lot of film score work. And then eventually I realized, oh shit, I get in some of these sessions, they put these mega charts in front of me. I'm like, I could read it if you gave me, I could nail it. If you give me the chart, let me take it to my studio.
Right.
And I'll crush it.
Right.
When you get it back, it'll sound amazing. Pavarotti plays classical guitar, it'll sound like,
Right. Right.
But if you want me to do it on the spot because the clock is ticking at the Warner Brothers lot and it's costing $70,000 an hour
Yeah. Right.
to produce that,
Yeah.
I'm not the guy.
Right. Yeah, I know. I have a lot of theories about that, actually.
Yeah.
Because you write and because you have a voice.
Yeah.
I think I'm the same way. It's like, it's harder to read because I feel like someone's telling me what to do.
Oh,
You know what
man.
I mean?
Wow. I had to fist pump you on that one. Yes. That's so true. I feel like that about music in general. I hate, and I think the older I get, now that I'm 50, I'm like, screw it. I don't have to care anymore. I don't care what you want me to do because I'm doing me.
Right. Yeah, absolutely, man. I'm excited. I'm 50 as well.
Right.
And I'm excited. Like I've never, turning 40 was like a nightmare. Like I thought it was over. But then getting closer to 50, I'm like, no, that's going to be my best decade, I think. At least the best one yet,
Dude, and now that we know each other,
see, it's just only up.
We're going to have 50s party. Every month, we're going to have a 50s party. Yeah, but aren't you 52? Don't worry. I'm 50. Ish.
Yeah, it's the anniversary of my 50th birthday.
Nice.
Yeah, for sure. So do you think that it's also sort of important to make your own music, as a person who constantly makes their living doing other people's music, whether you market this stuff and it gets anywhere and people hear, I mean, obviously you want people to hear it.
Yes.
Nobody wants to work in a vacuum, but also part of the important part is that you're expressing yourself and you have your time to do what you want to do. And doesn't that help to keep you sane doing all the other things?
Damn, you have some good questions, Eric. That's a great one because it's the impetus of what we wrestle with as artists, I think.
Yeah.
I also think there's two molds. I think there is the type of person who's really content with playing music for other people and playing exactly what's put in front of them or what they're asked to play. I hate to say told to play, but that is the essence of it. There are people that are fine with that. Now, I don't know the percentages. Okay. So I know a lot, for me, I know a lot of career musicians who never do their own music. They just play other people's music and they're content. Right. Great. Then I also know a lot of other people who are like me. They play other people's music to pay the bills, but they still got to do their own thing. Right. So for me, I think it's a very, depends on how you're looking at it, right? Subjective to whose perspective. It just depends on what you want to do and what you think your calling is. But I think if you know deep down that you're an artist of some sort, producer, composer, singer, writer, do not ignore that. The longer you ignore that, you're going to go crazy. Yeah. And I ignored it. Right. Bro, I was like, no, I'm working. It's fine. I'm playing music. I'll get to it. I kept telling myself, I'll get to it. Yeah. And then I'm 30. Oh, okay. Damn, I'm 30 and I didn't get to my music yet. I'll get to it. And then I'm 40. Damn, I still didn't get to my music and I'm 40. Yeah. That's when the album Nomad came out, just that. And I was like, no, I got to do that. So all my friends helped me in Nashville and here in LA because I was flying back and forth anyway. So we did that. And then my wife and I put our thing together. I'm like, okay, we're doing it. And then in the 40s, you're like, okay, it's really hard to do both, but we're trying. Like you said, unfortunately, not as many people know about it, but still you're doing it. So at least you're creatively fulfilled, right? You might not be monetarily successful with the music itself, but at least you're creatively fulfilled. And then you realize well, what the fuck did I do all this music for if it's just going to sit on my damn hard drive?
Yeah.
And I used to tell my wife, babe, I'm not making another song to sit on the hard drive. Yeah, but this one's really cool. I know it's cool, but I don't care if it sits on the hard drive. And then we have like 50 songs out streaming.
Yeah.
And then it's like, okay, well, we got a bunch of songs out. My point being, still, even though it's frustrating, still do it, because it would be even more frustrating if we didn't do it.
Yeah, for sure.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think you're in the same boat, because like you were telling me, you have been doing your music.
Yeah.
And I'm guilty.
Yeah.
I haven't listened to your music yet. So forgive me. You're making me feel so ashamed because you checked all my, but I'm going to check your music.
Nobody else has listened to it either.
Classic musician jokes. Love it.
You're not alone. I talked about a little bit about, do you know Drew Tabenfeld?
No.
He's kind of a younger guy, MD in town, doing a lot of stuff. Right now he's doing Casey Musgraves and stuff, but he was talking about too how it's sort of, if you don't do it, it can leak into your, like he's an MD, so sometimes his job is to like write interludes between songs and segues, right. And before he would write something and the artist would be like, not really, and he'd fight for it, but it's like, well, really, I'm fighting for me because I'm not expressing myself, and and that can start to leak into your other stuff,
So true.
And so I think it's important if you like you said, if you don't ignore it, I always just say honor your soul.
Oh, I love that. Great phrase.
Yeah. So
I already have some ideas of how you and I can collaborate on stuff. Jeez.
Well, let's do it.
Freaking love this guy. So, all right. So
I don't know, we just met.
I still love you. All right. In the musical sense, it's funny how musicians, we all say, I love you, man. But it's it's not disingenuous. It means like, I dig you, man. You're my vibe. That's what it means.
Yeah, totally. Well, after cyber stalking you for a while now, and listening to some of your stuff and your music, like we have to do a track or a gig or something. We got to play.
Absolutely.
I feel like musically we would be in line.
Synergistic.
What I mean?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
But I love what that guy Drew, you said.
Mm-hmm.
I love what he said about that. It starts to leak in. And I used to say that about players all the time. When you're in that young phase and you just want to play as fast as you can, you want to have all the chops, and you want to be a great bebop player, and this and that. You could always tell those cats on the gig, they're like, yo, and I would always say, as I became an MD, do not play no fucking jazz on this stage. This is not a chance for you to come up here and show off your chops. I could give two shit. And I don't care if it's jazz chops, funk chops, metal chops. I don't care what any kind of chops it is.
Right.
Just don't do it. This is not the venue for that. This is not the wrong gig, bro.
Right.
Play the part. Yeah. The artist is paying you thousands of dollars a week to play their music.
Yeah.
You better play it right.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And the other thing I always say about that too is like, when I hand you a recording, like some producer made a lot of decisions, and got this right and aligned all these parts and made it sound great. Who am I to go and second guess that? Like if you want me to, great, I'll do that. But start with the record, learn the part, play the part. Then if the guy said, let's change this up, well, then be ready and be creative. And that's where you get to bring yourself, but oh man, like honor that record.
Honor the record. Do you mind if I throw a G flat sharp 11 between the 4 and the 5? Yes, I mind, you dumbass. I wrote it 1-4-5 on purpose.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, totally. Which kind of brings me, you were the MD for 12 years for one of my biggest heroes, Babyface, who I told the story on your podcast, which I did your podcast first. That's going to be coming out. We'll talk all about this.
Yes, this is going to come out. Yeah.
Anyways, and Babyface was my hero, and you got to play with him for 12 years and musical direct. How was he to work with first? Let's get to, should I meet my heroes or not? I mean, I haven't met him, but that's a different story.
Incredible. He was great to work for. And that's so funny, that one little word, for, with, either for or with. I had a great story about somebody who we brought into the band, and he's like, no, I work with them. I'm like, no, you don't. You work for them. Because if you worked with them, you'd be on the exact same playing field as them, and they would know you as that, and they would have brought you in as that.
Right.
But they didn't. They brought you in as an employee,
Right.
not a collaborator.
Mm-hmm.
Big difference.
Yeah.
So be careful how you use that, how you view that.
Right.
He is amazing to work for, because I've worked for him for 12 years. Now, I started as just the guitar player the first 2 years.
Mhm.
And then I graduated to the music director when his former music director left to go do New Kids on the Block, Rob Lewis.
Oh, yeah.
Amazingly talented guy.
Mhm.
So he went to do New Kids on the Block. And then I just said, hey, I would love to put a band together for Kenny. His name is Kenny,
Right.
Babyface. I was talking to management, and she said, "Oh, really?" I said, "Yeah, I have a lot of musician friends. I'd love to do it." And at the time, just before I got the gig, I was the MD for Donny Osmond before I got Face.
Gotcha.
So,
Very cool.
so that helped
Mhm.
having a credit like that under the belt.
Absolutely.
So anyway, so then we put the band together, and I called, you call your friends who are really good players, though.
Right.
You don't just call your friends who are the best hang in the world, but not the greatest player. Don't do that.
Right.
You have to find the friends that are a great hang, but also a monster of a musician.
Right. Yeah.
So I brought
Yeah.
it. We auditioned probably 30 people,
Mhm.
and it was great. And so then we got that band together. So yeah, for the next 10 years, I was the MD. And then, it was an amicable breakup just before the pandemic, actually. So it all worked out great. But the time, you can tell time serves its time.
Mhm. Right.
Time served is time served.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
yeah,
it's like, hey, I did this and it was great, but I think we should go our separate ways. And absolutely, it was great.
That's cool.
But it was a great time, and I learned a lot. He is the most quiet, observant person
Interesting.
I had ever worked with that closely. So half the time I spent wondering what he was thinking while working with him.
Mhm.
And then the other half I spent trying to, make him happy musically
Right.
with what was going on stage. you know?
Right.
So, and it was interesting what you said again about the other music director, Drew, how if you're not doing your own music, your identity comes out into their music when you're building show intros or interludes and things like that. And I've done that a bunch, and I would try to sell it to him, and he would just look at me and be like, no. And at first he would just look, and I knew his facial expression so well after a while. So I just knew when he wasn't feeling it. But then sometimes I'd try to fight it, especially later on, because you build up your stamina of the gig. You're like, no, I got this. I can convince him.
Right.
Man, he would tear me down sometimes. And it's so funny because he would come down, and he wasn't the type of guy to be like, no. I said, no, that's some bullshit. He was not that guy. He's never going to blow up, never going to let you see him get emotionally, upset.
Right.
Or excited. He was pretty even keel,
got you.
So, but he would just be, he would come in. I would be working with the band. Great example. He would say, yeah, I need you to put this medley together. These, 13 songs of mine that are all number one hits. Oh, great. Yeah. And we work up a couple segues and things. And we spent 3 hours working on it. And we're all excited. We're like, yeah, we nailed these parts. We did this and this little hit here and these little syncopated things. And he would walk in. He's just walking around, listening. And he would walk up onto the stage. And this is at rehearsal. And he'd go over to the keyboard, and he would just put his hand up like, stop. Okay, stop, guys. Then he would start playing the chords of the song, and he wouldn't say anything. So he's playing the chords of the song, and you have to let him do his thing because he's processing, he's working it out.
Mm-hmm.
And then he would look to the drummer or the bass player, hey, play this, to do this. Yeah. And so he started rearranging the arrangement that we just did.
Mm-hmm.
And basically that was his way of saying, your arrangement sucks. I'm going to do my arrangement now. And at the end of the day, first you're like, oh, you can't get offended. It's this guy's music. It's this person's music. And he's a freaking legend. He wrote a gajillion number one hits. So it's like, dude, I always say he wrote the 90s. Like if it wasn't for him, the 90s would have no music. Like he freaking wrote the 90s. So you got to respect that. So I would tell the guys after, hey guys, it's all cool, man. Don't be upset because this is I don't think anybody was really upset, but we all just had to like accept it. And then you realize, oh, okay, it was cool. Now there was sometimes when we would do a killer song of his, like this song, you'd be like, oh man, it's one of his biggest hits. I love this song. And he just wouldn't want to do it.
Yeah.
Nope, not doing it. And you have to accept that too.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And that's not a personal thing toward him. That's just, again, you work for this person.
Right.
Not with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the thing too is that they're creative types, and I always also think that's like the best thing you can do for a person that's creative is give them freedom.
Yes,
and that's kind of what you're talking about in a sense. Like I worked for Keiko Matsui for 12 years as her musical director, and I'm on 2 records on like 3 tracks. She'd always go and hire the cats, and that's another thing that can easily be offensive, like hurtful when you're in her band for years. And but at the same time, every time I start to go there, it's like, well, you know what? She, as an artist, has a right to get the sound out wherever she wants. You know what I mean? My job is to give her that freedom and give her, and come in as a player with enough chops and enough whatever to give them the freedom so that no matter what they ask me to do, I can do it, and so that's interesting.
Man, it's so true. And it's easy. Like you said, we're all creatives, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
And we could wear our heart on our sleeve, right? Being creative. Because I always say we're directly tied to the muse, right? A vertical connection.
Right.
And when you're an open vessel like that to the creative gods, if you were the muse, it's hard not to get emotional.
Right.
Because we are connected to the emotional multiverse.
This is also what makes us a great player.
That's what, exactly.
Right.
So then you have to be like, okay, so I always say you have to separate the boardroom from the bandstand, right?
Right.
So you have to know, even though you're on a bandstand, you have to put your boardroom hat on. Because especially as the MD, right? Because you have a ship to steer, right? To navigate. You have these open waters. So now it's your job to get the. So I would say, again, when you're working as the MD or even just a side person, it's your job to help that artist facilitate their vision.
Right.
Unless they come to you and say, Nomad, Eric, I want you guys to collaborate with me, and the 3 of us will write this song together, or the 3 of us will produce this track, or the 3 of us will build this live arrangement together.
Right.
Very different.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
So, that's the goal, of course.
Right.
We want to collaborate with people who are the upper echelon, right?
Yeah.
And we do now. But it's taken us a while to get there, and I could stand to do more,
Yeah.
That's why I was so blown away by the fact that you're singing lead vocals for Chicago. I'm like, dude, that's amazing.
Yeah, and
that's amazing.
And they're also pretty cool. Like, I've sang like 3 songs at this point, in a verse of a 4th, but they're not in my face about make it sound like the record. There is some room for like, it's because I had to do. The Bill Champlin part on Hard Habit to Break for a while, and it's kind of my wheelhouse, and I feel like I got something to say, you know what I mean? So I was singing it, you know what I mean? Like I wasn't just sing the song. I'm like, I'm gonna put my thing on it, and no one, they were all very appreciative. It was very, I wouldn't take it too far. It's the same kind of thing. It's like you got to honor the records, and I just do that naturally. But it's like if you can do it, stay in the vein, but still put your own lick in there once in a while. You know what I mean? It's it can be done for sure. It's a lot of fun.
That's awesome, man.
But anyways,
so cool, so cool.
Yeah, I just did. The last podcast I did with Ray Islas, who
love Ray,
and we were just talking about mostly Chicago because I was just giddy about having the gig, and he's still giddy, and he's been there for 5 or 6 years. And it's like it's such a great group of guys. It's the first time I've ever been like, I get to do this, they pay me to do this,
See, that's amazing.
It took 50 years to get here or whatever.
That's amazing.
30 years in the business, but I found that gig.
But that's the climb, right? That's when the old adage comes to mind of, it's not a race, it's not a sprint, it's a marathon.
Right.
Enjoy the journey.
Right.
Don't be so focused on trying to get to the destination. By the way, I have to give a shout out to Ray Islas. If it wasn't for him, I wouldn't have gotten the Babyface gig. How it transpired, I was in Nashville visiting my daughter at the time, years ago. She was just born, but she was in Nashville and I was in LA because, we got a divorce and all that crap. But anyway, so I'm driving in the countryside of Nashville. Get a call from Ray Islas. Hey man, what's up? Hey, listen, you want to do a Christina Aguilera audition? I was like, hell yeah, let's do it. He goes, great. I'll put you in touch with Rob Lewis, the MD, and we'll go from there. Okay, thank you so much, Ray. Rob calls me. Hey man, the Christina audition is this and that. But before that, I have a more pending thing for Babyface. Do you want to audition for him? I was like, absolutely. He goes, great. Be at the studio tomorrow. I was like, oh, shit. Okay, no problem. So I'm still in Nashville. Jump on Southwest, book a flight, get there the next day. I got really sick on the plane. I felt awful. So then I walk into the studio, bunch of other guitar players waiting around.
Yeah.
I was the last one to show up. I was still early, but the last one to show up. So I had to put my name on the list, blah, 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 the whole thing. I said to the guys, I'm really sick. I'm staying away. This is way before COVID. This is 2007.
Yeah. Right.
So I'm like, would you mind if I go in first just so I can get home and get out of here? I don't want to get anybody sick. They were like, no problem, man. Go for it. So all these other guitar players were cool to let me go. So I was like, thank you so much. Walk in, and it's Rob Lewis, the MD, and Face sitting there in his small private studio. But he has a huge building, 4 studios in a giant building. This was his private studio, about the size of this room. So they're sitting there, and I told them, hey, I'm sick. I don't want to shake hands. And they're like, oh, cool. Thank you for letting us know. Do your thing. I played the 2 or 3 songs that they asked for. And they were like, all right, great. Well, and they were smiling. So, I felt the good vibes.
Right.
Then I left, went home, took NyQuil, and went to sleep. So that was the audition. But they asked me to play Change the World, a James Taylor tune, which I want to say was Fire and Rain. Yeah. And then I think Whip Appeal, one of Face's big hits. And then maybe something else. But, so again, by the way, I always like to say when you audition, just do you. And there's a fine line, right? Because you want to honor the person's music. You also want to honor, like you said, your soul, who you are.
Right.
So I'm a huge fan of George Benson. Yeah. So I always started scatting when I would play at a very young age. And when they said, take a solo on Change the World, I just scattered along with the solo. And I can see them smile when I did that. So I was like, okay, that's a good sign.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I've said many times on this podcast, I've only gotten 1 gig from an audition ever. I'm a horrible, apparently, I don't know. Because that's the other thing about an audition too, is like they're going to see 30 bass players and you don't know what they're really looking for. They don't even know what they're really looking for. It's, if you have actor friends, they probably talk about it all the time. It's you can't take it personal because you're just not right for the gig.
Right.
But I always in the back of my mind think, I know guys that are on that gig. I'm probably going to end up on that gig anyway because I know that drummer and, and he's going to know that, I love that. Plus in an audition, you sometimes have a committee of label people, non-musical people, I don't mean to say like label people, evil people, whatever. They do their job,
You got the suits.
Exactly. Yeah. And they're not musicians, but they're, the musicians are going to get on the gig and something's going to happen at some point and they're going to call me, or whatever, what I mean? It's possible, you know what I mean? So it's like, can't take that too personal or whatever, No,
I was always a terrible auditioner because I would get to the point, first of all, I would get nervous and then I would go through all these phases, right? And I would feel like, oh man, I don't know, I'm not going to get it. And then I would get to a fuck it stage. Yeah. And that's when I would go into the audition. I would build myself up to that fuck it stage. Yeah. And that would always help, by the way. 0 fucks given, best way to audition.
Yeah, totally.
And even with that, with the face thing, I was so sick. I couldn't even focus. I was just like, I'm just going to go in here, play, do my thing. I went home, slept it off for the next 2 days. And then I checked back in with Rob. And even still, it took like another week or so, and there was another callback. And so, but you just have to be like, so who the fuck cares if I play for whoever the big stars are right now?
Right.
If you want to play with the baby, okay. But Kendrick Lamar, I don't care who it is, Ariana or whoever, Selena, whoever you want to play with, it doesn't really matter. You have to get to that point where you don't care.
Right.
Whether you get that gig or not.
Yeah.
And then just let the universe do its thing. Yeah. But you keep your head down and keep working your ass off. That's all that matters, right?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
And then another audition trick that I always teach with the career musician is give yourself something else to look forward to. Right after that that audition with Face, I was going into the studio to record some of my songs.
Nice.
I was excited about that.
Yeah.
So I was really thinking about Friday when I got to the studio to record my songs. This was on Tuesday.
Right.
So I'm like, Tuesday, I'm sick. I do the audition, sleep it off for 2 days. Then I'm going to the studio.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's all I care about is Friday. It's a great distraction.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And this, you don't have any control over the outcome. So just forget it. Do it and forget it. You know what I mean?
I always say submit and forget too.
Yeah,
that's the other
there
thing.
you go. Yeah.
Whether it's a track for, composing for TV or film, submit it and forget it.
Right.
Or an audition. Go do the audition and forget it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like the money in the bank.
Yeah.
The money that you set aside for savings, you have to forget about that money.
Right. Yeah.
So,
yeah, that took me a long time.
Oh, me too. Jeez. We're still learning that lesson.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, for sure. Oh my gosh. How would you like to hang out and talk about music? Or discuss something you've heard on the podcast? How about learning some new techniques on the bass? Do you have a new song and would like some feedback from an experienced and professional songwriter? You can do all of that and more at golive.ly. I'm offering private bass lessons and songwriting feedback in a private setting over Zoom. Just search for me, Eric Baines, at golive.ly, pick a date and time, and schedule a lesson. It's that easy. I can teach you advanced bass techniques, music theory, improvisation, or we can talk about how to prepare for a gig, the best thing to wear to an audition, or the most important things to know about living on a tour bus. If you have a new song that isn't quite working, and you need some feedback from someone who's written and co-written hundreds of songs for artists, TV, film, and video games, I can help you with that too. All skill levels are welcome. Search for Eric Baines at golive.ly, golive.ly, and I can't wait to meet you. I'd like to take a second and thank you for listening to the Dive Bar Rockstar podcast. Getting the word out is a vital part of what it takes to keep this show on the road, and the easiest way to help is to subscribe wherever you listen, and if you have an extra minute or two, please leave a review. You can also follow our page on Facebook, which is the Dive Bar Rockstar Podcast, or follow me on Instagram at Dive Bar Rockstar. Okay, enough begging. I hope you're having a great time, and once again, thank you for listening. So you're obviously from New York. I can tell from your accent.
The hell are you talking about?
I already know anyways, but yeah.
What do you mean?
What part of New York?
Long Island. I always like to say Strong Island.
Of course you would. You're from Long Island.
I'm from Long Island.
That's cool. So what brought you out here? You've talked about Nashville a bit. And you spent some time there?
So that's the Nomad story. My father's from Cuba, Matanzas, Cuba, and he migrated to the States when he was a very young man. He wasn't even a teenager.
Wow.
But he didn't have his parents, his grandmother. He stayed with her, but then he basically grew up on the streets. So he was in New York, Florida, met my mom. My mom's Italian, from a real New York Italian family. So Cuban Italian. And then my dad was always an artist. My mom, they always say we're a gypsy family because, my dad was always an entrepreneur. We always moved around a lot. So I had over 25 physical addresses by the time I was 30.
Wow.
Right? So it was crazy. So anyway, long story short, born and raised in New York, then moved down to Florida, moved back to New York, then moved back to Florida with the family.
Gotcha.
And then I was like, I was down in South Florida, Fort Lauderdale area. And I was like, man, I started doing gigs and all that stuff. And that was great. But it's like, I really want to do session work. So I went to Nashville. Did a stint in Nashville for 8 years.
Wow.
Did a ton of session work and learned a lot. That's where I got all my studio chops. Well, most of my studio chops, because I had a dear friend in Miami before that, Roger, who taught me about being in the studio. And we produced a bunch of stuff together. But then I went to Nashville and got real session chops as just a sideman player, not a producer or anything. I also produced and wrote. Anyway, 0 country sessions. I leaned into my niche.
Wow.
My niche was Latin, soul, rock. So anything soulful, anything rock, and anything Latin, and especially acoustic based, that was my niche. Got that calling card. People knew. So 8 years was great. I got a lot of credits racked up.
Wow. That's amazing. Yeah. That's because I always talk about Nashville because I've considered moving there, and I worked for Dwight Yoakam for 5 years, and so sort of got into the country thing a little, and we were going there, so I'm meeting people, and a lot of LA people have moved there too.
Yeah, of course.
And they're always like, "Hey, man, it's not all country."
Yeah, right.
And then you go there, and you're like, No, it's mostly
It's more
country. You know, so for you to be able to to carve out a niche there for yourself, other than country, not that country's bad.
No.
It's just that you know, it's not necessarily my thing. You know.
Yeah. No, the caveat is you got to find the other markets, the what do you call ancillary markets, right? Christian music, gospel music. That's really what got me in, because at the time, gospel and CCM, contemporary Christian music, they're really emulating what the pop charts are doing,
right?
And still, it's always kind of, and that's good, you know, because they're saying, hey, if this was what the young people are identifying with out in the, you know, I hate to say in the secular world, I hate to say that, but I was raised Catholic and then turned into a Christian, and then came back and realized, wait a minute. I could still say fuck. It's okay. So,
so now you're a fucking Christian.
Yeah, lightly. I believe there is a God. I believe there is a higher power, but I'm not like a Bible thumper.
Gotcha.
It's hard, you know. I don't want to. Yeah.
We don't have to get into.
We don't have to get into that. So anyway, I really found my niche there, but then that leaked over into some pop records too, and that's when I was like, oh, wait a minute. So this area of the Christian gospel got me started, and then I started leaking into the pop stuff. I'm like, wait, I should probably go to LA to really even pursue that more.
Gotcha.
And then I had a bunch of producers who were like, dude, you're like a film score guy. I was like, yeah, you're right. I need to go to LA. So that's what I did. So then I went to LA. Yeah.
Well, that's great.
Yeah. So anyway, as musicians, as modern day musicians, we're all nomadic. We go where the muse takes us, I always say.
Yeah.
So the muse has taken me all around the globe. I've been very blessed and fortunate. Knock wood. I do not take it for granted.
Right.
I am not a braggadocious person at all. I try to just, you know, always be self-aware.
Right.
You know, I love Gary Vee because he's always talking about this ultra self-awareness. Gary Vee is like a modern motivational speaker, YouTube, social media influencer, but also an entrepreneur, you know.
Interesting.
10X entrepreneur type guy. And it's always about the self-awareness. So I came out here to pursue film and TV, got Alex Al, was a dear friend of mine. I knew him through Kirk Whalum.
Great bass player. And he referred me to 2 sessions, and that really got me going. Wow.
And then Dave Hooper, a drummer. Do you know Dave?
I know Dave too.
Love Dave. He and I became best friends over the years.
That's great drummer.
Yeah, fantastic.
Just amazing.
Yeah. And then he's like, we'll move to Santa Clarita when I came out here. I was like, okay, cool. Valencia to be exact. I was like, yeah, it was really nice. I visited it. And then I called him like a week later, said, hey, bro, you want to get some coffee? He's like, yeah, right. You're in Nashville. I was like, no, I'm actually at the coffee shop on the corner of so-and-so. And he's like, what? I said, I moved here. You told me to move here. So I did.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
That's so awesome. You like LA?
Love it. It's so interesting because I'm a tried and true New Yorker. I'm always going to be a New Yorker. It's always home to me. Yeah. When I go back and do gigs and visit family and stuff, I'm just like, it's home. I always say to my daughter, because she hasn't been yet, I have to take her. And she's been to a lot of other places. I'll take her to New York. But it's like when the last 20 minutes of a flight, getting into New York is the most exciting thing in the world to me. I've been to a lot of cities all over the globe. Yeah. But that 20 minutes getting ready to descend into New York, I'm just like, I just lied. I can't, and then I can't sleep. I could be in New York for a week and not sleep. Yeah. No drugs, just not sleep because I'm so wired.
Well, there's a song about that. It's a city that never sleeps.
Oh, that's right. I didn't even try to set that up for you.
It's just true.
It just happened.
It's just true.
It's true. Yeah. But that's how much of a New Yorker I am. But no, I like it out here. Like the thing that scares me the most, though, because I lived in Florida and hurricanes, I've been through a lot of them. I lived in Nashville, tornadoes, I've been through a lot of them. I'm scared shitless of earthquakes. Oh, yeah. So I'm so scared about that. And I've been through a couple small ones, but
yeah, we've been really lucky.
Let's not even go there. So I love everything with that.
Right. Yeah, that's very true. Well, that's cool because we do talk a lot about LA on this podcast. In fact, I've been reluctant to interview anybody outside of this LA scene yet. You know, I think I need to branch out, but I do love it here so much, you know, and it gets a bad rap on so many levels, but I don't know, it's been the greatest 22 years of my life, you know. If I hadn't come, what this city has given to me has just been incredible, you know. And
I agree.
That, you know, and being in the film scoring and composing thing, like it's a pretty important town to be in for that stuff, you know.
Yes, now Atlanta's coming up with that, and we were just recently looking to buy a house and we considered Atlanta, but we ended up buying out here. You know, although nowadays, because on my podcast, I interviewed Carlos Rivera, the composer for the Queen's Gambit.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I love that dude.
Yeah.
And he's a guitar player as well, but he lives in Miami. So what I've noticed is that even to get these big composing gigs, you don't necessarily have to live here, although it is good, I guess. It is good. It's good to live here because once you get to know the directors and the producers, then they all have little studios, or you have your studio. Hey man, can you come check out this cut? You know, I need you to, let's do a spotting session at my place, or let's do a spotting session at your place. You know, there's a lot of that.
Yeah.
So that helps.
Yeah. And I was going to talk to you about that actually, because, you know, I came out here to be a touring guy. I talked about that on your podcast.
Yes.
And players are so accessible here because they're in the clubs when they're not. Well, there's a lot less clubs now. It's getting trickier and trickier.
I know.
But you're there. So I don't know. Maybe my whole theory is gone now. But when I first got here, I had a demo in my hand.
Right.
And I went to like 3 clubs a night, every night.
Yes.
And just met everybody, passed it out, because people, when they're not on the road, they're playing. And
did the same. That's why I'm surprised we didn't meet before. It's so weird.
It's crazy. Whereas, like, if you want to be a songwriter, which I also am and was very into for a long time, it's not as easy. Whereas you're in Nashville, it's almost the opposite. All the songwriters are at the clubs playing their songs every night, and you can just walk right up and get to hit songwriters, you know, and show them your stuff. In LA, it's a little trickier, and same with the composing thing. It's like, where do you go? It's harder to network. Like, how have you been able to do that? You know?
Well, it's so funny because that's a great story. I came out here to pursue film and television music. And then I got a few really good film scores where I was playing guitar for John Powell, again, through Alex Al. I'll never forget that. So grateful. John Powell said to Alex, hey, I need a guy who can play funk, flamenco, country, and rock. And Alex was doing some upright for John. And he said, oh, I got the guy. This is guy Michael Ripoll, because before Nomad, I was Michael Ripoll. I mean, that's my name. That's my legal name. I'm still that guy. But I like Nomad because, by the way, all those records that I played on in Nashville, they would always screw up my name on the liner notes. We don't have liner notes now anymore.
Right.
It would always be Mike Ripoli or Mike Ripoll. So I'm like, even RuPaul. So I'm like, okay, really, guys. Anyway,
it's not that hard.
I like the one name alias. Anyway, okay. So I got Mr. and Mrs. Smith, Happy Feet 1 and 2. You know, The Lorax, P.S. I Love You. All these films with John Ferdinand. So playing guitar, and because I was versatile, I always wanted to be able to play as many different styles authentically as I could. So that took precedence over being a bebop shredder or a heavy metal shredder. I was better at heavy metal shredding, but I could emulate bebop. But that got me started, those two things. And then I went over, and then classical. And then I got into flamenco and Cuban music because my father, and the blood is there, you know. So then I was just like, no, I want to do it all. So I really did not master. And John Powell said this on my podcast, actually. He said, the trick is not being a jack of all, master of none. The jack of all, master of some. Find the things that you gravitate toward naturally. Really lean into those things. Yeah. And it's going to be a handful. And he said, that's how I became a composer too, because I liked all these different styles. And then it's an amalgam of all that. Right. So that's how that started. And then I was like, okay, I love this. But I wasn't the best sight reader. John referred me to Danny Elfman. So I played on Men in Black 3. Wow. So all the guitars you hear on these films are like, it's me. And even Men in Black 3, it just starts with crazy rock guitar. You know, it's me. And this Nicole Schwarzinger, how do you say, from the Pussycat Dolls, she's walking down the hallway with this cake and her boobs and this bustier on. Oh my God, she's so damn fine. And she's just walking down the hallway with this, and you just hear my guitar, right? So I'm like, oh, that's so cool, right? But then there were some other parts in the film, and those parts with Danny, he was like, yeah, I want you to improvise. Here are the chords. Here, I want you to improvise. Just give me something that's Hendrixy, yet still a little bit modern, blah, blah, blah. There were some other parts where he put a chart in front of me, and I was kind of flubbed my way through it. Got it. But it took more than one take. Right. And then he asked me, hey man, give me a wah-wah pedal. I was like, okay, great. Go to my kit, pull out a wah-wah. He goes, yeah, that's cool. Do you have like a Vox or a Crybaby? Just classic?
Mm-hmm.
Go back to my little... No. Damn it. I had 2 wahs, and they were both no-name wahs, off-the-wall brands. I like those wahs because they had their own unique sound, but they weren't the classic sound. By the way, here's a great story. So at the time I had cartage. We were still doing cartage, Hollywood studio rentals, right? I had an A rig and a B rig. I spent a lot of money to get these rigs built. And the A rig and the B rig, technically they're supposed to be identical. So if you talk to Dean Parks, Michael Landau, Paul Jackson Jr., my heroes, they all had ABC rigs and they were all pretty much identical. So that way they can facilitate going to different studios every day and have the rigs be set up ahead of time. Right. Exactly.
They're like leapfrogging.
So you dovetail for the leapfrog. Right. Exactly. So here I am, 2005. I'm going to do it right. I'm going to get my A rig and my B rig. Well, my A rig was set up at Chalice Studios in Hollywood for a session with P. Diddy. And I didn't want to break it down because it was like a week-long writing session with him. So I'm like, okay, then I got the call for this thing with Danny Elfman. I was like, so I called Mike Brown, my guy, my tech. Love Mike. Big shout out to Mike Brown. He's the tech for all the big dudes.
Cool.
I said, Mike, bring the B rig to the Elfman. He's like, okay, cool. So we get there and I didn't have the wah-wah. So I think the one and only time I worked with Danny Elfman was because there are 2 reasons. He asked me for a specific piece of gear, which I didn't have. And then I flubbed a little bit on the sight reading. So I think those 2 reasons, I said, well, wait a minute. Damn it. How am I going to have a career playing film scores if I'm not the greatest sight reader? The gear thing I can fix. I made sure I bought 79 wah-wahs and they're all,
right.
Like, I can fix that. It's easy. That's within my control. I could fix a sight reading, but it's going to take me at least 3 to 18 months to really hunker down. And I'm going to have to put a lot of time into that.
Yeah.
And at the time when you're hustling, you have a family, you're trying to make ends meet. It's hard.
Right.
Right. Yeah, no excuse, but still, I just didn't. And it wasn't really my passion. Remember I said strengths and weaknesses? It was a weakness that I wasn't really passionate about. I was like, I don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
But I did. I still, to this day, I'm tormented. So I came out for that. So now, after that, I got the Babyface. I got the American Idols live tour with Carrie Underwood. She was the winner that year. And then they asked me back, but I declined because I was trying to take more session work, be a composer. Anyway, my point is now for the past 5 years, I've finally focused on being a composer. So I've done a handful of indie shorts and indie documentaries. I've composed a bunch of library music, which is used in tons of TV shows. Right. I've been doing that for a while, and commercials and things like that. Yeah. Multimedia, web stuff too. So my goal though is to compose for a TV show. Yeah. I really want a show like Narcos.
Yeah, oh, nice.
It's all my Latin chops, and I have all these different guitars from around the world, the guitaristic instruments. So, balalaika, cavaquinho, and ukuleles, and all these different things. So, that's what I want to do.
All right. Well, you just put it out to the universe, and it will.
I do it.
You just did it.
So. I say it all the time. That's still my, and that's been my goal for a long time now, for probably about 10 years.
Yeah. So. Well, it's hard. Like it was my goal for a long time too, and but it's like as that becomes the last place to make money. Right. Everybody wants in. You know what I mean? Yes. And so it just makes it harder and harder to get your stuff heard. And, but I think, again, it comes to the networking, don't you think? I don't know.
100%. Like I always say your network is directly linked to your net worth, Right. Unfortunately, and I say unfortunately only because I know as musicians, there's 2 sides of us. The, hey, how you doing? All right. And then there's the, leave me alone. I don't want to be bothered. And so, exactly. And sometimes I know for me, I can do the, hey, what's going on? I can do the schmooze, but I don't like to do it.
Yeah, it's horrible.
I'd rather just sit in my studio and make music. But like you said, you can't work in a vacuum.
Right. Yeah.
So it's like,
yeah, I know. It's a hard one. Especially when a lot of times, like I said, when I first moved here, it's like the place to go was the clubs at night. And I'd be like at 3:00 in the afternoon, I'm like, this is going to be great. I'm going to go meet all the people. And then by 6 and I have dinner. And then by 7:30, I'm just like, God, I'm tired. I don't really want to do this. And then, then it's like, I would just get myself to be like, just show up. Don't put any pressure to even talk to anybody.
Yeah.
Just get in the room.
Just get in the room.
Because even if you just do that, people are going to see you. And eventually you do that enough, people are going to be like, well, who is this guy? Let's go, just get yourself in the room.
In the room.
And chances are you're going to talk anyways, and you're going to be inspired by the music because, it's LA. There's just great players here. And
imagine if you and I both didn't know each other. We both felt like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then we saw each other at a club. And then we saw each other at the same club again. And then we saw each other at the same. Eventually, we're going to be like, oh, shit, who is this? All right. Dude, what's up, man?
Exactly.
And you just start talking.
Right. Yeah.
Get up, dress up, show up.
There you go.
Right. That's the thing. So I've tried to live by that. And it's tough.
Yeah.
And even still now that the world is coming back after the pandemic. And I made a pact with myself and my wife. I'm like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to get out there more.
Yeah.
So, and we have to. And I'm the career musician guy. I have to live by my by what I preach.
Exactly. Yeah. But sometimes that's what it is. It's just living by a doctrine, sort of. You know what I mean? Like sometimes you just got to go through the motions until you're inspired again. It's not like, maybe you agree, maybe you don't. But the thing about being a professional anything is that I can't wait for inspiration. Once you put a professional and that, you're going to rely on that income. Now it's a craft. Now it's a skill. Now it's something that it's not necessarily going to be fun all the time. Now it's like, I don't sit around and wait for the universe to give me this great song. No, I've got to write songs every day. I've got to write bad songs if that's what comes out and get to the next song. I got to play every day. Maybe I sound like shit today.
Yeah.
But at least that you got all those shitty licks out. Now tomorrow you'll sound better, but you got to do. We don't want to.
Freaking love that. That's it. You got to do even when you don't want to.
Yeah. Well, we keep talking about it. So you have this amazing podcast called The Career Musician.
Yes, sir.
And you had started this before the pandemic, right? Judging by the dates on the podcast episodes.
Yeah.
But then it seemed to ramp up during the pandemic, like me too. The only reason this exists is because I had nothing else to do for a year. And and I wanted to talk to people and keep saying and keep reaching out when we're stuck in our homes,
Yes, sir.
But, tell me about your podcast.
Yeah. Thank you. It started as a passion project. I was on the road quite a bit with Face at the time. So I had my iPhone all the time and we'd be hanging with the guys in the van, in transit or at the airport, backstage, green room, whatever, hotel.
Mm-hmm.
And we'd have conversations. And I just started recording the conversations with my phone. I'm like, man, you guys mind? No, it's cool, man. It's like, we're talking about some good stuff. It's like, okay, you guys mind if I turn it into a podcast? No, it's all good. So of course I gave everybody credit and and so the first few episodes really revolve around all the people I knew in the Babyface camp because that's who I was with a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And then some session people that I was doing sessions with randomly. And I loved it. I was an avid podcast listener.
Right.
So I really knew how to produce a podcast. I understood all the pre, mid, and post roll, spots and ads and, intros and outros and stings and bumpers and all that. Of course, I knew audio. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, okay, I started producing and I realized this is a lot of work.
Yeah.
So I got like 5-10 episodes in and I was like, I don't know. And my wife just kept encouraging me. She's like, no, you really got something to say. You got to do this. And I was like, Finally, when the pandemic hit, we both looked at each other. I was like, okay, you're right. So I just started ramping it up and I started doing the Zoom things. And then I found this Eric G, this dude, he came to me actually. Well, we met on a gig before the pandemic. I asked him to audition for Babyface. He turned me down. I was like, wow. How dare you, young one, turn me down?
I said Babyface.
Yeah, hello. I know. He was a dumbass at the time. He didn't know. But now he's been under my tutelage, so I trained him. He's going to love that. Don't take that out. But no, he was busy. He was teaching at the time. He was a teacher for an organization, so he couldn't just up and quit. There were repercussions if he did.
Right.
So to his defense. But so anyway, I met him. Then he came on board. He's like, I just want to help out. Can I be like an understudy? Can I work with you? Absolutely. And so then we just nailed a bunch of episodes and we made it a goal. We got to 150. And for the 150th episode, we did they interviewed me.
Right.
My wife and Eric, and then our other guy that was on the team, Charlie. So it was a lot of fun. We had fun.
That's cool.
And then I think it was episode 149 or 151. I don't remember. We got Leslie Odom Jr. Because I know from Hamilton and all these big movies. Right. I know him. I played on a bunch of his records and we've become friends. So cool. he agreed to do it. So that was cool. So now we're almost at 155. We slowed down because we're building some other things. So at that point, I realized after doing all this, no, I'm an educator. I always loved teaching. I hate teaching because it's a rigmarole of this one canceled, or this one they're not paying, or this kid doesn't practice.
Yeah.
I don't like that kind of teaching.
Yeah. Right.
I like more.
I'm telling you, I'm the exact same way.
Yeah, more of the thinker's teacher. I love motivating. I love thinking. I love philosophy. I love all those things, and I've always listened to that stuff growing up, and I've always read that kind of material.
I think that's why we're hitting it off.
That's it then.
Yeah.
That's it.
Because I would definitely come from I had the first cassette tape thing of Tony Robbins.
Oh my gosh.
Neuroassociative conditioning.
Yes, that's why. And Earl Nightingale. Do you know Earl Nightingale?
I've heard that name.
He's the godfather. Napoleon Hill. You know him?
Yeah.
So it was Napoleon Hill, Earl Nightingale, Tony Robbins. Not necessarily in that order, but that is the order. Those were like the three pinnacles, right? Yeah. See, that is why. Look at that.
Yeah.
So that's when I decided the Career Musician is not just a podcast. It's an education platform. It's a motivational resource. Well, our mission is to empower musicians with strategies for a sustainable career. So
excellent.
Empower musicians with strategies for a sustainable career. What does that mean? How the hell to make money in the music business as a musician, not as a music business person, but as a musician. It's hard. Let's be real. It's fucking hard, dude. 30 years in the game. Yeah. I've had crazy ups and downs. People might be here listening and think, oh, listen to all these credits. No, dude, that's only the good shit that you're hearing right now. You didn't hear about the other times. Yeah. You didn't hear about all the downtime.
Yeah. Well, not to let me just interrupt for a second, but let's get back to that. When you were talking about going out and networking too, the other thing is people talk about paying their dues, and I'm here to tell you that you never stop paying. It's not like you pay your dues and then you win and you get all the... No, you never stop paying. I'm in Chicago. We tour all year round, but I'm about to have 3 months off. So I need to get back out and go talk to people and show my face again. So they'll call me for some gigs, And it's like, it never ends. It's what it is,
So true. So that was my whole mission. And now literally I'm 50 and, I'm not dying, but I am reinventing myself.
Right.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And I'm like, well, if I'm going to reinvent myself, damn it, I'm going to teach those who want to do what I do everything I know.
Yeah.
Everything I know, you're going to learn from me. So I wrote a book. It's called Ethos. And
Excellent.
Ethos stands for energy, talent, humility, objectivity, and savvy. And those are all the pillars, the principles, the precepts, if you will, that I think we need to embody. Now, it's Ethos, the Career Musician's Code. The reason why it's the Career Musician's Code, because I turned it into a code of honor that you can take yourself.
Nice.
Like a little vow. Lawyers, medical people, they all take this code, right? They all adhere to a code, a higher moral standard.
Right.
Why don't musicians, instead of putting one another down, hey, you know so-and-so? Yeah, no, man, he's kind of a dick. Why? Why is that the first? Why go there? Yeah. You know so-and-so? Yeah, I know him. Yeah, cool. Oh, great. Yeah, I did a gig with him. Oh, cool. Or how about this? You know so-and-so? Oh, yeah, that guy's an asshole. Oh, great. Well, I just produced an album for him. Oh, you dummy. Look, you just put your foot in your mouth. See, because that's musicians, a lot of times they don't think, they just talk out of their emotions. And we're always putting people down, always judging them. Yeah, they're all right. They can't really play so-and-so. What? Dude, or the other thing, hey, man, how you doing? Oh, great to see you. Hey, what are you doing? Oh, I'm doing this and that. Oh, cool. Yeah, oh, I did this. I did that. I did this. Now I'm on tour with this. And I did this album and I'm writing with it.
Right,
really? It's like, oh my gosh, people, stop. Stop. Just everybody stop. Take a break. Take a pause. You have to bring the right energy. You have to have talent, but talent everybody has. So give me a break. Exude some humility.
Right.
While you're exuding humility, stand back, approach everything with objectivity. It's not about you.
Right.
Actually, nobody gives a shit about you.
No.
They give a shit about themselves.
Right.
So remain objective. And then for crying out loud, have some business savvy.
Yeah.
Pay attention to your finances.
Yeah.
Learn how to budget.
Right.
Learn
Yeah.
how to adhere to a calendar.
Well,
Learn time management.
Time management.
Come on.
It's so vital.
If you don't time manage, you're screwed.
Yeah.
So these are the concepts of ethos. So I wrote the book. Very fortunate. David Foster wrote the foreword.
Awesome.
So very grateful to him.
Never heard
for
of
that.
him.
Yeah. I've done quite a few gigs with him through Babyface, through that association.
Right.
And David's just been really I'm so grateful. Those words coming out of my mouth, I'm just like, wow, that's mind-boggling.
Yeah.
And then we created a course in the middle of the pandemic called Pro Level Sessions from Home. We haven't released it yet. We're releasing it in a few weeks, October 2022.
That's awesome. Yes, I wanted to get to that too, because that looks amazing. I've watched some of the promo stuff. And well, first of all, how important do you think having a home studio is to being a musician these days?
Well, it's vital. And it's so funny because I almost feel like I feel stupid for saying this because I feel like everybody knows it. But no, that's wrong. There's a lot of people out there that still don't know it or understand why it's vital. It's absolutely vital. Do not be a musician and not have a home studio set up. And I'm not just talking about your laptop, a pair of cans, aka headphones, us old guys call them cans, and a microphone and your instrument. No, I mean, start with that. You have to start there.
Right.
But really take the time to build it out and over time, just keep adding to it and make it better. Because you and I both know, if we didn't have our home studios, I'm going to say 50% to 70% of my income would never came.
Wow. Yeah.
I mean, at this point, 70% since the pandemic. But even whether it's podcasts, whether it's me producing for other artists, composing, just doing session work, or commercials, library music, jingle, whatever it is, it's so vital to have it.
Yeah.
You have to have it. And then get well-versed in everything. I was never a keyboard player, but I can play because I understand music theory.
Right.
I was never a bass player, but I can play because it's so similar to guitar.
It's a lower guitar.
And all the other guitaristic instruments I approach in the same way. Tommy Tedesco, a great session ace from back in the day, he said, pick up any instrument with strings on it and tune it like a guitar. And then just play it. So, do you play mandolin? Yes. Do you play balalaika? Yes. Do you play cavaquinho? Yes. Do you play the Puerto Rican cuatro? Yes. Do you play the Cuban tres? Yes. You just tune them all like a guitar.
Banjo?
Yeah. Banjo? Yes. So same thing. So you have to have the home studio. And that's what this course does. Pro level sessions from home, where myself, Eric G teaches keys. I do guitars and bass. And then Richie Pena, our friend from New York, teaches drums. And then my wife comes in, does some vocals, and Eric G does vocals. Basically, the whole point is you can record anything from your house, but there's a way to do it to sound professional. Because we feel like at the Career Musician, the market is inundated with amateurs producing amateur music, broadcasting and publishing amateur music because that's what technology allows. Fine. Can we just step up the game a little bit?
Yeah.
If you're going to dip your toe in the water, just fucking jump in the pool. Yeah. Don't dip in. Jump.
Well, the only reason I even call myself a producer now is because I was producing. Like for years and years, I'm like, I don't really want to do it. Yeah, I got a setup. I'll make a little demo. Well, that demo is going out to people. So like it or not, you're producing. And if you're going to be producing, you got to be good at it. You better, you got to step up your thing, and from what I was listening, because that's the other thing about all of this, like, some of us go to school and like take engineering classes, but other ones that don't and that have gone through this era of everyone has to have a studio, so you better learn, have just acquired these skills, know, and every ounce, you can go on YouTube and stuff now. Here's all this stuff right here in a compact. Here you go. Take the course. You're going to get. Not everything you need, because that's the thing. Like, there's so much to learn and there's so many things, but here's like from what I can see already is just like, you want to cut a good bass line. Here's how to go. You want to make it sound good. You want to make a good sounding, clear vocal. Here's the path,
That's what we did. We tried to be as comprehensive as possible, but still yet succinct enough so it's digestible, and we just wanted to teach how we've been doing it. And that's the thing. You and I learn from association by default. I've been in some of the biggest recording studios here in LA, like you have, and we have some of the world's top engineers.
Right. Exactly.
Tracking our instruments.
Mm-hmm.
So of course we become buddies with those engineers. I'm like, hey man, what's the best way to do this? What do you think? Man, I'm going to get a new preamp for my home studio for guitars. What do you think? We're getting like the real information.
Right.
Now, when we were coming up, there was no YouTube and there was no information technology available.
No.
So encyclopedias and publications. That's all we had, you know.
Yeah.
So now it's such a different playing field, right?
Yeah.
What they miss is the experience that we have.
Exactly.
That's what I'm offering you if you buy this course. And what I did was I made it just under $500.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of courses you can go out and buy $12, $13, $15, $2,000, $3,000.
Mm-hmm.
Mine is $500 because I still have to monetize. I still have to pay my team and I still have to make some money.
For sure.
But $500, if you can't afford $500, get out of the business. Don't even come into my business.
Yeah.
And that's how I feel about amateurs. Nothing wrong with being an amateur. Don't stay an amateur.
Yeah.
So that's,
For sure.
that's my mission.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about. Like I saw it right in front of me. I'm like, if you're going to put music out, it's got to be better.
Yeah.
You know, or what's the point? You know,
Right.
I needed to be as good as I can possibly be.
Right.
Period.
That's it.
You know, and this course looks amazing. I mean, I'm excited. Like I want to get some access because that's the other thing. It's like, even if you've been doing this for years, like I have,
Yeah.
you're always going to learn something new.
Always.
And everyone has their way of doing things that are interesting. And
Right.
like, it's always worth it for me to look at anything, you know
That's
what I mean? Or read any book, you know,
That's
like there's a, what is it called? Behind the Glass. There's a couple of great books
Yes.
where you can just, articles from the greatest producers ever. And like, it's just, there's so many things to do and so many variables that you'll never stop learning, you know? So it looks extremely exciting to me.
Man, thank you so much. It's a lot of work and I've had to learn a lot about business marketing and all that stuff. And I'm doing all that and making my own videos and learning cameras and lighting, you know, just like stretching myself.
It's kind of the world right now though, isn't it? It's crazy. I've got a ring light right
I see
here.
The ring light. Yeah.
It's been sitting there for a month. I'm trying to figure out what to do with it, but
I got like 3 or 4 of them. Yeah. And then I'm learning, ring lights are okay, but then you got to get this light and then you got to get a light box and then you got to get this and you need a dimmer and you need a control and a remote control and a wire.
Yeah. I know. And like all I wanted to do is, write songs and sing them, I mean, that's the thing of it. And that's what's so important now. Like, this has to be, and I'm pointing to my studio gear, it's like, this has to be like another arm.
Yes.
You're not going to be able to it's going to be not creative at first.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Until that becomes an extension of yourself and your gear and your software well enough to where you can I need a guitar part. I grab this. I've got my favorite sounds all lined up, and like as it's coming in your head, you can get it out. It's going to be a second until that gets there. That's like part of the process. I suppose just like the first time you went from a G to a D, just getting from G to D, that's a process of learning, right?
Wait, let's go from an open G chord to an F chord.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But then once it's in your, then you can be creative on a whole new level.
Exactly. It's true. So you got to learn the fundamentals and understand the vernacular a little bit. And then you can go be creative. I totally agree with that. By the way, the course we teach Pro Tools, Logic, and Ableton. I did 3 DAWs on purpose.
That's
because I don't want to hear any excuses. Now, I didn't teach FL Studio or GarageBand or a lot of other lower level, more consumer-based DAWs because I feel like you don't need to. They're really well built. The user interface is very user-friendly, right? The interface is very user-friendly.
Right.
I did the more standard ones. People still argue, no, sorry, Pro Tools is number 1 in the industry when you're dealing with commercial studios.
Right.
Every commercial studio in New York, LA, Nashville, and all the other studios around the world, Pro Tools is primary. They all track to Pro Tools and mix in Pro Tools. Then you have Logic and Ableton and everything else, and Cubase, which I love.
Yeah.
And that's becoming more and more, or the other one, Studio One.
Mm-hmm.
But still the standard is Pro Tools. So my argument is, once you can afford it, I'm not saying you have to start out there. Once you can afford it, then get Pro Tools and learn it. At least learn your way around.
Yeah. I know.
But what I did is I started training myself to just use a DAW and understand I can look at anything. And you just sit me down with a new DAW, I'll figure it out. Give me like 20 minutes.
Right.
I think because it's all intuitive at a
Right.
certain point.
Yeah. Well, the other thing that I noticed in one of your promos, that you talked about starting with a 4-track, or starting with a reel-to-reel, which I did.
Yeah.
I have 4-track reel-to-reel in my bedroom when I stole it from my high school when I was 15. Sorry, I'll give it back. I still have it.
Awesome.
You can have it back.
Awesome. I'm looking at all the gear back here. Yes.
Yeah. And then I had the 4-track cassette, and then I started working, on the computer stuff. And that's part of that experience that kids today don't, just to sound like an old guy.
No, I know.
Kids today don't understand what these softwares are doing are emulating what used to be actual gear in a room. So
that's it.
Coming from that background, you should be able to look at a DAW and say, if not, then that DAW's not built all that well.
Exactly. Agreed.
Because it's a mixing board. It's emulating an actual piece of hardware.
That's it.
So
it's a digital mixing board.
Yeah, totally. So anyways, and that's probably another thing we have in common. I mean, from as soon as I could record something, I was recording something, you know what I mean? And learning how to bounce tracks and how do I get a whole band sound out of 4 tracks? And when you're forced into that, you have to learn about it. You have to it makes your brain think in different ways. And then once you get to a DAW where you can do anything, you still are coming from that knowledge of how it all works. I don't know. I'm not explaining it right.
I love it. You said
it's important.
You said the magic word. One of the magic words, bounce. Man, I have bounced, and people don't know what bouncing means nowadays.
Right.
They think it means rendering a track. The final. Okay, yeah, it is, because that's what Logic coined it as. But it's not really a bounce.
Right.
A bounce is when you record a part on one track, but you need that track to record something else. So then you take that one track that you recorded and record it on top of another track that's already been recorded. Right. So you have to pre-mix it to go onto that other track with the other instruments, but you better get it just right.
Yeah.
Because once you commit it to tape,
then you're going to erase that.
Then you're going to erase that other track.
It's going to be gone forever.
That track now is going to be available for whatever you need it, but the guitar that you recorded is going to be baked into the drum track. What?
Right.
You're crazy.
Yeah, totally. Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
well, and
fun stuff.
It looks awesome. And where can people find it?
ProSeries.thecareermusician.com, thecareermusician.com, basically. We're everywhere on all the socials. The Career Musician. If you go to our Instagram, you'll see the link tree. Everything's there. We're releasing the course soon. And if you buy within this certain window from October 17th through the 24th, what you're going to get is some crazy bonuses. You're going to get the book for free that Foster wrote the foreword, right?
Mm-hmm.
The Career Musicians Code, Ethos. But then you're going to get an hour free consultation with me.
Oh, very cool.
So you'll be able to schedule a Zoom. You'll get a scheduling link. And you could say to me, hey, Nomad, I'm doing this. I want to learn how to do this, or, these are my goals. What do you recommend? And I'll give you a free consultation.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Because obviously you're a dude who's full of information. And if I had 6 hours to keep this podcast going.
I love it. No, let's cut it. Thank you so much.
But I'm so glad you came out, and it's great to meet you in person. And thanks for doing the podcast, man. It was just awesome.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. Dive bar rock star.
Yeah, man. So let's go get some lunch.
Let's go to a dive bar and get some lunch.
Oh, that sounds awesome.
Dive bar rock star.
Well, that was awesome. And it was great meeting Nomad. And he's just so full of knowledge, and he's really good at refining it into great ideas and palatable ideas, which I think is a pretty cool talent. And it was so great talking to him. I really loved when he was talking about sight reading and how he wasn't a great sight reader. And he had to make that decision whether to take the time to get better at that or go in a different direction that interested him more. I think it's really important, because just the idea that I could take the time and get better at this is something that a lot of people don't think about. I run into people that, are wanting to have a career in music or whatever. Well, I don't do this. Well, I don't do that. Well, I don't sight read. Well, it doesn't have to stop there. When I was born, I couldn't walk, and then I learned to walk. It's really cool that he had that thought. There was never a thought in his mind that he couldn't be a better sight reader. And that's the thing. You're not born with these skills. These are things that we've all acquired. It's not a thing that you just show up in the world with. So it's pretty cool. Like, he had to make a business decision. It's going to take me approximately this long, in my estimation, to be a better sight reader. And is that the right move to make as far as getting me where I want to go in my music career? But it's not like, oh, I don't sight read, so I'm just not going to do it. It's not worth it to me to take the time. And I think that's an important thing to consider when it comes to any kind of skill. Is it worth it to you to learn it? But don't think that you can't learn it, because sometimes it is worth it to you to learn it. And, I used to teach marching band when I was out of high school. I taught marching percussion. And one thing that I would impress upon them as well is that another thing that we're not born with necessarily is the idea of concentration. You're not born just with the ability to focus, like you have to focus to do something like sight reading, for instance. And that's a skill in itself that you have to acquire, that you have to practice, just concentrating and focusing hard and staying in a song for 3 minutes without messing up. It's just another example of things that you just don't think about. These aren't things that people just naturally have. It's all stuff that you need to work towards, and that you have the ability to do. You just got to work on it. And sometimes it'll take you a year, just like you said, but sometimes that year is going to be worth it. Nicole Scherzinger is the Pussycat Dolls singer that he was referring to. She's in the opening of Men in Black 3. He kept using the word DAW, which is actually an acronym that stands for Digital Audio Workstation, and it refers to any software like Cubase or Logic or Pro Tools, Ableton Live, things that you use to record. Well, that's our rainy day episode. I hope you enjoyed it and you got a lot out of it, and I will speak at you on the next one. I'm a dive-bar rock star. Wow, you've made it to the end. I'm hoping it's because you completely enjoyed yourself and are now filled with knowledge and inspiration to move forward with your dreams. If that is the case and you would like to stay informed of new episodes, live events, and general news, please go to divebarrockstar.com and sign up for the mailing list. If you have any questions, comments, corrections, or complaints about anything you hear on the show, please email me at fanmail@divebarrockstar.com, and you may even end up on the show. We at the Dive Bar Rockstar podcast, with all of our hearts, thank you for listening, and remember, it's all about dreams.